What is up, everybody? How y'all doing out there? I hope this video is finding you well. Today we are just going to discuss Pilgrim by Harmon Cooper, which is the last of the 5 books that I have chosen for the project that I am writing here on Write On In. So we are just going to talk about what I thought about that book and wrap up those book reviews before I move on into National Novel Writing Month, which starts like next week, and I for one can't believe it. But anyway, without further ado, let's just get right on in. Pilgrim by Harmon Cooper was actually a surprisingly good read. I'll be honest, up front I was a little bit iffy because I'm kind of anal about formatting things, and there were spaces in between the paragraphs, and from the get it kind of made me feel like I was investing more in a long series of blog posts as opposed to a novel. That being said, I was actually pleasantly surprised with what came of that book. So what we see here, our main character is named Danzen, and he is a former assassin who's basically on a quest for redemption to clear out his name from all of the stuff that he's done in his past life. The novel itself is constructed into 11 different parts, and each part consists of 4 different chapters, and those 4 chapters usually see Danzen on some sort of specific quest that is done throughout those 4 chapters, with the whole overarching plot hanging behind along the way. At first I really liked the structure like that, how it was like thought out that way, kind of from the start, with the 11 parts and each part having the same amount of chapters. Toward the middle, I started to feel a little bit disconnected, just because I felt like, you know, I would get to a part and it would be like, okay, so what plot line are we going to see accomplished throughout the entire thing? And so it kind of read more almost like a series of short stories put into one for a minute. But the thing is, since it is Japanese inspired, I got really into the idea of Asian literature, Asian film, all of that while I was reading it. And I ended up watching Handsome Siblings on Netflix, and first of all, I love that show. I randomly started it. It's like the best. It's a Chinese fantasy show, and I know that that's Chinese and Pilgrim is Japanese, but watching that show actually helped me visualize some more of the things that was going on in Pilgrim, and it also helped me keep in that mentality of almost like an episodic storyline, because in TV shows obviously you have each episode that is part of the whole overarching thing, and so watching that actually just really ended up helping me read this book and reconnect back into those parts and each little individual adventure Danzen went on. And Danzen himself is also a very strong choice for a main character. Most of the adventures that we join him on see him going through a series of different yokai, which is basically like a spirit or a monster. It's a Japanese lore, but there are a bunch of different yokai, and we see a lot of them showing up throughout this text. He obviously befriends a couple of these yokai throughout his little adventures, one being Kudzu the fox, and another being Jelme, who I don't actually think I can talk about here without giving away any spoilers. A lot of attacks that come to Danzen are from what is known as the Dayu Brotherhood, with them being the people that Danzen is trying to escape, and his little path on his quest of redemption is what garners him that nickname of Pilgrim. We definitely do see a lot of action in this book. I think that it's just well paced. I think that it's well thought out. Part of the reason that I actually chose this book, it was, yes, because it was Japanese inspired and I wanted to read an Asian themed book, but I also wanted to do that from a white author's perspective, just because being a white author myself, I wanted to see how other white authors were incorporating different cultures and races into things that they wrote. And I was a little bit nervous about it at first before I actually read it because I was scared he wasn't going to execute it well. But I really think that this was a well-researched and well-executed book, especially for all of the Japanese elements that are in it. I definitely struggled with character and place names a lot during this text, but it's very easy to forgive and overlook based alone on the fact that it's Japanese names. You know what I'm saying? It's like it all made sense and it all fit for the purpose that it was chosen. So even though I struggled here and there to pronounce some things, didn't deter me or affect the overall process of the book in reading it for me in a negative way. Out of the 5 books that I read for that project that I'm writing for on this channel, this was probably my second favorite in the self-pubbed. 4 of the 5 were self-pubbed books, but this one, Empire Souls Apocalypse by James T. Callum, were definitely up in my top 2. I'm also just super happy about the fact that being most nervous about the Japanese elements of this book actually became my favorite part of this book. So I'm really happy with how everything in here was researched and executed, and I thoroughly enjoyed this read. I ended up overall giving it about a 4 out of 5. 4.5, but I rounded down because there's some grammatical things that just really bothered me, and if you've seen any of my other reviews or read any of my other reviews, then you know that I get really picky about things. I started this review talking about spaces in between paragraphs, so I'm really picky with formatting and grammar and all that kind of stuff, but some things did bother me enough for me to lower it down to a 4 instead of keeping it at a 5, but I wouldn't have those be reasons that I wouldn't recommend this book. You know what I'm saying? Those are just me being annoying. Well, anyway, that is all I have to say on the spoiler-free section of Pilgrim. If you have read this book, please leave me a comment down below. If you have not read this book, leave me a comment and let me know if you plan to or not. I would recommend doing it, especially if you do like Asian-themed literature, or even if you don't, because it's a pretty good introduction for that. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed this book a lot. I'm gonna throw some spoilers at you, so if you have not, leave me a comment, take a moment to press that little subscribe button, and we're gonna get into those spoilers in 3, 2... Okay, so this Dayu Brotherhood is after Danzen the whole time. So at the beginning, we see him fighting off one of his former mentors, who's named Norwin. The prologue itself, I thought, ran a little bit long when I was on my initial read, but it definitely all makes sense within like the first couple of chapters as to why there was so much happening at the beginning, just to set up everything that was about to happen in the rest of the text. Another thing that I liked, especially when it comes to the Japanese, you know, lore and everything, Dayu means hell and Sunyata means heaven. And I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing names and things wrong, I'm trying my best. But I really also like, there's a lot of references to the Sunyata and the Dayu, just kind of in general, you know, a heaven and hell kind of thing, and I liked how that played out throughout the text. Especially when we are considering Danzen's whole little demon speech ability, which I think was much better played here than it was in Monster Whisperer, which I don't want to talk too much about that here because I don't want to spoil it, but Danzen's a demon was way better played in this text. Especially when you go on to consider that they basically discovered the same thing, which, sorry if that spoils Monster Whisperer, but Danzen's father is like the ruler of hell, and we go on to find out that he has one half-brother who is a full demon, and that his father, Danzen's father, raped his nun mother, and then his nun mother is who gave him up to the Brotherhood. And I'm sure we're gonna see a lot more of that family dynamic in the next book, which I'm actually super excited about, because it's definitely setting up for Danzen to at least go forward to try and find his mom and figure out why she abandoned him like that. I'm definitely looking forward to that storyline in the second book because I fully intend on carrying on with this series. But I do want to talk for a moment about Jelme because he was my favorite and I mentioned him in the spoiler free, but I really don't think that you can talk about him without giving away kind of what happened. So Jelme is a yokai who is known as a Bakaneko. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong, but B-A-K-A-N-E-K-O, Bakaneko. Anyway, he's a Bakaneko who's basically like a cat that can turn into a human and eats everything in sight. And we meet Jelme when he is disguised as a little boy eating like a store and furniture and all. It was a very strange section of the book, and it was also followed up by Danzen rescuing a fire-breathing chicken. But once Jelme turned from the boy back into the cat and became his own character and joined in on the quest, he was just so funny. He was the best comic relief for this whole entire story, and he added so much, even though he as a character didn't necessarily come in until later, because even after we had met him as the boy eating everything, he still wasn't part of the story until a little bit later. But he was my favorite and I loved him so much, and I would consider reading book 2 specifically just to read more from him. If I wasn't interested in anything else, I would keep reading just for Jelme. So there's that. I just wish that there was more of Yama, who was the lion dog, because Yama came first and I was super excited because I thought Yama was going to be part of the thing. And then Kudzu came second and she was the fox and she stuck around. And then Jelme came third and he was the Bakaneko cat thing and he stuck around. And then Yama just stayed back at the monastery where Danzen lived and became like the house dog for the family that he was staying with, which was cool, but I wanted more of Yama, so I don't know. Maybe there'll be more of Yama in book 2. I'm also just a little bit confused as to whether or not Soko is actually dead. And Soko is another assassin of the Brotherhood, but she's a she, and I'm not really sure if she's the only female assassin. There wasn't really too much into that. There was just some specifics between Soko and Danzen, and I'm pretty sure Danzen killed her, but he's also questioning if she's really dead. So I'm sure that will be something that goes forward into the second book, and she probably won't be dead, but she should be, because I'd rather watch him keep fighting Norwin than bring her back around. But she was fine, but I mean, if she's dead, then bye. So all of that being said, I am definitely interested in moving on into the second book whenever it comes out, because this book just came out in September. Harmon Cooper, the author, has plenty of other books that if I have time, I'd be willing to check out, but right now my reading list is just getting bigger and bigger by the day. But I really enjoyed this book a lot. I highly recommend it. If you've watched the spoiler-free and spoiler section of this video, feel free to head on over to my blog and read the chapter by chapter analysis that I kept while I was reading it as well. And again, leave me a comment. Let me know if you've read this book, if you want to read this book. If you have read this book, I want to talk about it with someone, so leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And hit that little subscribe button while you're down there leaving that comment. Press that little bell notification so you can come back and look at this beautiful face every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Or, I don't know, just come back around and see what I'm doing. This channel's gonna be growing. We're writing a book in November, so come write with me. But in the meantime, thank you for letting me get out all of these little book reviews for the project that I am writing for on this channel. I look forward to getting through Nano and finishing this little book that I'm writing, because it's been fun, but I've also just constructed a book from scratch and I'm ready to actually get right on into writing it. So I'll be back on Tuesday with some sensory details, and then Thursday is the wrap-up video for October before next Sunday is officially National... It's next Sunday, wow. I just actually realized it's next Sunday, cool. Well, anyway, that's gonna be super fun, but I'll see you all on Tuesday.